Hi there, this is Dr. Evan Osar with Integrative Movement Institute. Today, got a special guest for you, my good friend and colleague, Jackie Bachmeier. Come on out here. What's up, friend? So, Jackie Bachmeier owns and operates Evolution Fitness and Wellness here in Houston, Texas. And rather than me talk about it, why don't you tell our audience, most of you guys know Jackie, but if you don't know Jackie, she is one of the most wonderful people I've met. She's connected me, she's got a lot of awesome things about her. One of the things I admire most about her is she knows how to connect great people. She's connected me with one of my closest friends now, Robert Linkle, you guys know him, of training an older adult. She's also connected me with my Pilates instructor, who's also become a good friend of mine and also has become the model for my brand new book. Brianna, you've also connected me with Robert, another bald Robert, who's become my self-defense instructor. So look, you're a great connector of people, and I just really love the community you've created here at Evolution Fitness and Wellness, because that's one of the biggest things that I've learned from your clients, just talking with them, is they love the community. So can you talk about that community, how you built it, and how you nurture such an amazing community of individuals here?
Yeah, I'm a Cancer, so I think bringing people together in a family environment is kind of a characteristic of being a Cancer, if you're into that kind of thing. And so I think that's probably been a driver there. Is I treat my clients like they're clients, because you have to have that little barrier, if you will, but at the same time, I'm passionate about helping them. And I want them to feel comfortable here. I think that's what sets studios apart, right? Is if they're comfortable in the environment that they're training in, and they feel welcomed and they feel part of something bigger, they'll keep coming back. And so I think that's been the key, the secret sauce, if you will.
Absolutely. Now, you also have, one of the reasons Jackie and I have gotten together, number one is because she ropes me in every time I come down here to visit my sister.
You're not supposed to tell anybody that.
I do have a sister that lives very close to here as well. The other thing is when you just started in the industry, like, was it 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago now?
Yeah,
brand new, coming from a whole different field,
yes.
sort of the business world.
Yes.
And can you talk a little bit about the transition? And I know you love telling the story. Like when you first saw me speak at Functional Aging, those guys over there, our friends over there at the Functional Aging Institute, Dan and Cody. Can you talk a little bit about that experience? Because there's lots of trainers here that may be new to our community, they may be new as fitness professionals, and sort of your evolution, so to speak, in this industry just in a short period of time.
Evan, what's cool is I think because we've told this story, you and I, probably 25, 30 times now. One of the things I was thinking about the other day was I have a long history in education. So I worked in higher education for almost 20 years before I made the transition to becoming a trainer. That transition was just completely driven by my own experience of knowing that I was going to be a grandma soon, and I have a very specific intention in my head about what my interactions with my grandchildren are going to be, and I want them to be active, and I want to be able to run with them and play ball with them and climb jungle gyms with them. And the condition that I was in when I was working in my previous job was I was very sedentary, and everything hurt, and I knew that was not going to get me where I wanted to be, where my intention was. So I hired a trainer and started that process, and as I was getting more confident about being in a big box gym on my own without a trainer, I was watching the people that were coming in and out. And they were older adults in my age. I was in my 40s at that time, but you'd see people in their 50s and 60s. They basically would walk in and they'd kick around some equipment, they'd walk out, or they'd end up on the cardio equipment, and that would be their workout. So I knew there was a population of people that needed this particular type of environment. And that was my start, right? It was a dream. I wrote it down, so now it was a goal, and it's happened. Interestingly enough, that was like January, February of 2016 when I opened the studio. Just thought that people were going to just by osmosis find me, no marketing plan or anything like that. Just build it and they will come. That's been true to a point, but I was lucky enough to stumble on the Functional Aging Summit in Mesa in 2016 and convinced my husband to drive me out there. And saw a lot of amazing presenters, you being one of them. And I remember specifically at that event, you started talking about a lot of anatomy that I had never heard of before. And at that moment, I was already self-conscious, like I had this stamp on my forehead that said, she's a new trainer, doesn't know anything, but you don't know what you don't know. So I think in this industry, if you take the attitude that you know it all, and what you're doing or have been doing is all that you need to know, that is an approach that's probably gonna get you only so far. So I take that challenge because anatomy is not a strong suit for me. It's very challenging for me to learn, but I think that education and constantly learning and doing is super important, and it's allowed me to progress in my 6 years now. It's allowed me to really share some amazing things with my clients. We're constantly evolving and finding not the next, what is the word I'm looking for? Not the next trend, if you will, but really what works. And then as you continue to develop what works, just polishing it and making it better.
For sure, for sure. Now, we've had the opportunity, as I mentioned, to evaluate maybe 10 of your clients, probably more than that over the last few years that I've known you.
Yes.
Now, they come in with a variety of goals and desires. You know, like some of them want to look better, right?
Yes.
Like, I just want to lose weight and look better, right?
Right.
But most of them have very specific goals.
Yes.
I have poor balance and I want to improve my balance, right? I have a trip coming up and I want to be ready to do the trip, like Bonnie, for example. She's like, I want to be able to hike the swamp, you know, with my son and my grandson, my son and grandson and grandchildren, and not trip over the roots and fall into the swamp and get eaten by alligators, right? Right? And she was able to successfully do that, right?
Yes.
So lots of different goals.
Mm-hmm.
What was the one thing that, in a lot of different history, right? You've had clients that have cancer, you have clients that have neurological conditions, multiple surgeries.
Yes.
You have, you know, on the younger spectrum, like our age, 50s, and on the older spectrum,
I'm
like,
okay saying that loud. 50s.
50s, yeah. And then older clients, like, you know, 80s to 90s.
Yeah.
So they have a very extended medical history, some of them.
Yeah.
Regardless of their medical history, what's the one thing that we keep coming back to that actually creates pretty dramatic changes for them, both short term, and you've seen it with some of your clients long term?
Yeah, breathing. I mean, seriously, it's breathing. In every single scenario, when we've been able to help people identify where they're not optimally breathing, and then help them find that spot, even if it's not really significant in the beginning, but just the idea that maybe I'm over breathing in my left side, but for whatever reason, tightness or surgery, scar tissue, whatever that assessment has found, you know, just getting them to be able to breathe into maybe that right side better, or, you know, maybe they're not breathing in that upper rib cage area at all. In every single scenario, it's come back to breathing.
Yeah, and even you had a guy, Roy, and his primary goal, I want to hit the ball farther, right? That was his goal. He put down on his assessment form. My goal is to hit the ball further because I recognize I'm not hitting the ball as far, right? And we looked at his rotation. Every time he rotated to his right, so his backswing, he would compress down on that side. Yep. So that will definitely limit his ability to rotate. So we took him through assessment. We said, oh yeah, you're not breathing into that right side. Yeah. And remember, if you've been part of our community, we talk about like the key to rotation. One of the keys to rotation is the ability to stay long. The key to staying long is to be able to breathe through the cylinder so the cylinder stays long, that thoracolpelvic cylinder stays long, so you can get that pure rotation. Yeah. And we showed him before and after pictures, like not only was he standing better, you know, hence the grid lines here, he was standing better and looked thinner afterwards. His rotation was so much more clean, so to speak, just more pure axial, like rotating on an axis rotation.
Yeah, it was interesting with Roy because just about a week before we did our assessment with him, he had reached out to me and said, can you give me a series of stretches that I can do because I'm feeling really tight in my shoulders and I'm not able to drive the ball like I was, right? And so for Roy, everything in his movement is based on his golf game. He's that passionate about it. And we were able to show him just through making some slight changes in his release work and then the breathing and rotational work, how he can improve that. And so I sent him the side-by-side photos last night in a collage, and he texted back and he said, it is absolutely amazing how you can see the difference between before and after in less than 45 minutes, and how just from breathing. We did nothing else with him. There was no stretching.
Mobility work.
None of that. He was
And
breathing.
that was awesome. That's so awesome.
Yeah.
Such a sweet man, like so many of your clients. And I have a professional golfer flying into the city once I get back home, and that's the number one thing that we work on with him, because he compresses so far down on that right side, and then he had a rib injury that, he had tons of trainers and therapists and conditioning people working with him. No one was working on his ribcage alignment, and no one was working on his breathing, which is crazy to me to think about. The pro golfers aren't looking and working on those things.
I know.
So it's really
We
cool.
have something to teach them.
We have something to teach them, for sure. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story, your community. It's been such a great, just a reinforcement of like how powerful the work we do. People are like, oh, you're just a personal trainer, you just train old people. No. It's so much more than that. You've heard me talk about purpose, and I know your purpose is to serve older folks and really help them transform their lives and really create that safe environment. And you and your husband Jason, who is your business partner, and your team have done a wonderful, wonderful job with that. So thank you for allowing me to share in that experience as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime.
And finally, since we're talking about anatomy and breathing, we have a brand new series of True Anatomy Geeks. And one more thing I want to add about Jackie. A lot of things that I do in practice, my wife has told me like many, many times. And then when I hear it from Jackie, I'm like, oh yeah, you know what, Janice said that as well. So I should have listened to Janice in the first place. But one of the things you asked me way back when, so Janice, if you're listening to this, which you probably are, thank you. One of the things you asked me quite a while ago, you're like, I'm really struggling with anatomy, right?
Yeah.
Exactly as you mentioned, like a lot of trainers do, and I did also, even going through chiropractic school. When I got out, I didn't know anatomy the way I needed to, right? So I'm like, yeah, there's some anatomy resources, so I gave you a bunch of resources. And then my wife had told me multiple times, you need to create anatomy resources for fitness professionals.
Yes.
And I'm like, no, they don't know.
Yes.
They already know that stuff. And then finally, I forget what the catalyst was. It was probably you. That was you. Yes, it was you. I'm finally like, you know what? So Jill, who's an anatomy instructor, she was a student of mine in massage school. Now she works in our clinic, and she's an anatomy instructor in the massage school now and teaches anatomy and physiology. We started to just goof around, like when COVID hit. We were just doing Facebook Lives, or I should say, right before COVID hit, we were doing some Facebook Lives on anatomy, just trying to make anatomy simple. And then that turned into True Anatomy Geeks. And it's been one of the most successful things we have done, programs we've created outside the Integrated Movement Specialist certification, to really bring anatomy alive, to simplify it, and to make it relatable to your clients. Because it's great to know like the origin insertion of this muscle here goes from here to here and it does this, but we want you to be able to use that and apply that information. Can you just talk real quickly about how understanding anatomy has helped you as a fitness professional work with clients that have multiple issues, right?
Well, it has helped me a lot. As I said at the beginning of this, anatomy is not my strong suit, and quite honestly, I didn't realize how important it would be until I got further into this whole process of working with the aging population, right? And what's interesting is, we can revert back to everything we've all known, right? We talk about the book that started it for you in the industry to begin with, and we kind of get stuck in those old ways and we forget about all of this other, we kind of just go, It's just a shoulder, right? But it's so much more than that. So the True Anatomy Geeks series has been a great way for me to learn, but then to be able to go back and reference as new cases, new things come in. Because just because somebody presents with a shoulder issue doesn't mean they're all the same type of shoulder issue, right?
Right.
So understanding all of that's been very helpful to me.
Awesome. So, speaking of which, we have a brand new webinar coming up this Thursday at 7 p.m. Central Time. we're going to talk about the anatomy of breathing. Some of the most important muscles, or I should say the most important muscle, the diaphragm, and how that relates to many of the things that you and I have been discussing. How the diaphragm relates to obviously breathing. So we'll cover the anatomy of it and the physiology of the diaphragm, like how it works. But more importantly, how does that help and relate to better posture?
Yeah.
What your clients noted, like, hey, I look thinner, I look different. I can't believe breathing did that, right?
Yeah, but not just clients, Evan. Like it's happened in my studio with my trainers, because we've brought you in numerous times just to really help the trainers have a deeper understanding of movement, and then they see it in themselves, right? I've done it. I do it. Yeah.
when I give her a little hard time about it, right?
Yeah. When you don't do your homework.
When you don't do your homework, exactly. So Thursday, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, free webinar, 60 minutes. But Jill and I, once we get going, it always goes longer than 60 minutes. If you can't make it live, sign up anyway. Mary's going to put the link below or next to this video wherever you're watching it. Sign up for it. We're going to cover the anatomy of the diaphragm, how it relates to posture, movement, balance. We're going to show you a quick, easy assessment. We're going to show you how to change breathing right away to change range of motion as well as posture in your clients, and more importantly, how to create those long-term changes. So I want to thank you for joining us today on Facebook Live. Thank you for all you do for your community. Thank you for all you do for your community. Thank you for allowing me to be part of your community as well, and sharing with my community as well here at Integrated Movement Institute. I'm Dr. Evan Osar with my good friend and colleague Jackie Bachmeier. We'll see you next time. Hopefully we'll see you Thursday. And again, if you can't be on live, sign up for it anyway. We'll send you the recording once it's done. Make it a great day. Go out there and empower your clients, and let's help transform their lives and be that leader our clients and our communities need. Take care.